Leonidas and the 300 Spartans, the last stand at Thermopylae. The morning mist clung to the narrow pass like a funeral shroud, but King Leonidas of Sparta felt no chill as he gazed across the coastal corridor of Thermopylae, literally hot gates, toward the approaching Persian horde. He knew he was staring into the face of his own legend. What happened in those 3 August days of 480 BCE would echo through history, not as a military victory, but as something far more powerful: the birth of the ultimate warrior myth. But here's what Hollywood never told you: this wasn't really about 300 men. It was about a king who had spent his entire life preparing to die gloriously, facing an enemy whose very existence threatened to erase Greek civilization from the earth. The impossible enemy, picture this: the largest army ever assembled in human history up to that point, stretching so far across the horizon that Persian scouts couldn't see its end. Xerxes wasn't just seeking conquest. He was pursuing vengeance. 10 years earlier, his father Darius had suffered a humiliating defeat at Marathon against a vastly inferior Athenian force. That loss had festered like an infected wound in the Persian psyche. Now Xerxes came, not just as a conqueror, but as the instrument of divine retribution, bearing the full weight of the world's greatest empire behind him. The Persian advance was so massive, it literally changed the landscape. Ancient sources describe how the army drank rivers dry and stripped entire regions of food. They built a pontoon bridge across the Hellespont, the narrow strait between Europe and Asia, that was considered one of the engineering marvels of the ancient world. When storms destroyed the first bridge, Xerxes ordered the sea itself to be whipped 300 times as punishment. This was a man who believed he could command nature itself, Spartan war machine. But if Xerxes commanded the impossible, Leonidas embodied the unbreakable. Every Spartan warrior had been forged in humanity's most brutal military system. From age 7, Spartan boys were torn from their families and thrust into the Agogia merciless training regimen that transformed children into living weapons. They learned to endure pain, hunger, and exhaustion as easily as breathing. By adulthood, they had become something that wasn't quite human anymore: pure military perfection, wrapped in bronze and iron. Leonidas himself was nearly 60 when he marched to Thermopylae. Kita, a grizzled veteran of countless battles whose very presence commanded absolute respect. He had been chosen by the oracle at Delphi through a prophecy that chills the blood. Either Sparta would fall, or a king of the house of Heracles would die. Leonidas, descended from the legendary hero, understood his fate with crystalline clarity. He was not marching to Thermopylae to win, he was marching there to die in such a way that his death would matter more than most men's lives. Here's the detail that gives you goosebumps. Before leaving Sparta, Leonidas told his wife Gorgo not to expect his return. When she asked what she should do, he replied simply, "Marry a good man and bear good children." This wasn't bravado, it was a man who had already accepted his death, making final arrangements. This strategic masterstroke. But why Thermopylae? Its narrow coastal pass, barely wide enough for 2 chariots to ride abreast, was geography transformed into military genius. Its cliffs rose sharply on one side, the sea crashed against rocks on the other, and in between lay a corridor so narrow that Persian numerical superiority became meaningless. Here, 300 Spartans could theoretically hold off millions as long as they never retreated, never broke formation, and never stopped fighting. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While the Spartans held the land route, the Greek fleet would block the Persian navy at nearby Artemisium. If both held, Xerxes would be trapped his massive army, unable to advance. His supply lines stretched impossibly thin. It was David versus Goliath, played out on a grand strategic scale. Yet, Leonidas knew something his allies didn't fully grasp. This wasn't really about military tactics. This was about sending a message that would resonate across the Greek world and down through the ages. Some things are worth dying for, and some stands must be made regardless of the odds. The first shock, when the Persians first arrived at Thermopylae, Xerxes couldn't believe his eyes. A Persian scout reported something that must have seemed like hallucination. The Spartans were exercising and combing their long hair, apparently preparing for some kind of ceremony. The scout had witnessed the pre-battle ritual of warriors preparing to enter Valhalla. Xerxes sent a herald demanding surrender. The response became legendary. "Come and take them, Moline Lay." Those 3 words would become a rallying cry for defiance against impossible odds for the next 2,500 years. The first day's battle was a revelation that shattered Persian confidence. Wave after wave of the finest Persian warriors, elite guards who had never known defeat, crashed against the Spartan phalanx like ocean waves against an immovable cliff. The narrow pass negated every Persian advantage while amplifying every Spartan strength. Their longer spears, heavier armor, and superior training created a killing machine that functioned with mechanical precision. So numerous they were said to darken the sun, simply bounced off Spartan shields and bronze armor. When a Persian envoy warned that their arrows would block out the sun, Spartan warrior Denix allegedly replied, "Good, then we'll fight in the shade." The ultimate betrayal, but every legend needs its Judas, and Thermopylae found theirs in Ephialtes, a local Greek whose name would forever after be synonymous with betrayal. For a handful of Persian gold, he revealed what Leonidas had always feared: a mountain path that could bring the Persians around behind the Greek position. Here's where the story becomes almost unbearably poignant. When Leonidas learned of the betrayal, he dismissed most of the Greek allies, keeping only his 300 Spartans, about 700 Thespians who volunteered to stay, and 400 Thebans whose loyalty was questionable. He knew they were all going to die, but he also knew their deaths would serve a purpose greater than their lives. The night before the final battle, the Spartans held a feast. They joked, told stories, and prepared their weapons one last time. They were dining in Hades, as one put it, but they would dine as free men. The final stand, the last day at Thermopylae, was less a battle than an orchestrated massacre, but the Spartans were conducting the orchestra. Surrounded, outnumbered, beyond all reason, they fought with the fury of men who had already crossed into legend. Leonidas fell early in the fighting, and the battle for his body became the stuff of epic poetry. 4 times the Persians took the king's corpse. 4 times the Spartans won it back. When their spears shattered, they fought with swords. When their swords broke, they fought with daggers. When they had no weapons left, they fought with their bare hands and teeth. The Persians finally overwhelmed them through sheer weight of numbers, but not before every single defender had sold his life as dearly as possible. It's the victory in defeat. But here's the twist that makes Thermopylae eternal: this defeat was actually the greatest victory in military history. The 3-day delay had given the Greek city-states time to prepare their defenses. The naval battle at Artemisium, while technically a Persian victory, had cost Xerxes so many ships that his naval advantage was neutralized. More importantly, news of the Spartan sacrifice electrified the Greek world. Athens was evacuated and burned, but the Greek fleet lured the Persian navy into the narrow straits at Salamis, where superior Greek seamanship destroyed Xerxes' naval power. The following year, the Persian army met its doom at Plataea, fighting against Greeks inspired by the memory of the 300. The Spartans had lost the battle, but won the war through the simple act of refusing to surrender. Their sacrifice had transformed the Persian war of conquest into a Greek war of liberation, and in doing so, they had saved Western civilization itself. The epitaph carved on the monument at Thermopylae captures the eternal power of their sacrifice. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. They had kept faith with their code unto death, and in doing so, they had achieved something far greater than victory. They had achieved immortality. In a world where military might seemed to guarantee success, 300 Spartans proved that sometimes the greatest victories come through the most glorious defeats. Their story continues to inspire because it answers the fundamental question every person faces. What would you die for? At Thermopylae, 300 men answered that question in bronze and blood, and their answer echoes still